The average agent does 3 deals a year. At our office, we want professional agents that do a number of transactions. The Department of Justice has been looking into real estate, and they're talking about, well, one thing is a clear cooperation policy. Should that stay in place? And clear cooperation is if we list a property, we have to have it in our MLS within 1 day of marketing the property.
Before we begin the podcast, I have a super simple ask for you. If you could subscribe to the channel, that would help us reach more business owners every single day. Thank you. Let's begin.
Brian, you are the incoming president-elect for the Central Wisconsin Board of Realtors. The National Board of Realtors recently had to pay $418 million due to, the notorious lawsuit. Being that I'm sure most of my audience is familiar with the lawsuit, can you go over some of the downstream effects or externalities that you're seeing at a more local level?
Yeah, obviously it's a big deal. It was a settlement that impacts our entire industry. At the local level, we've had some practice changes, but we haven't had significant day-to-day changes. We don't use our MLS to offer compensation anymore. That's significant when we look at how long we've done that in history. But overall, we just haven't had as many problems. Luckily, in Wisconsin, buyer agency has been strong for a lot of years. So it's not that this is brand new. I know there's states where it's brand new and they're starting from scratch, but we've been practicing buyer agency since essentially I started. It came out, I think, in the early 2000s, I believe, before my time. And I've been practicing buyer agency for quite a long time.
Okay, so I know you poked there a little bit on commission. Now that it's not listed on the MLS, what's happening? Like, are people hiding? Are people being forward with it? Like, what are you seeing?
I haven't seen any hiding. I haven't seen any like sites where people are sharing. I haven't seen any of that. It's been a little bit of communication between agents, just phone calls or texts. But otherwise, for the most part, there's a lot of non-commission sharing where the listing agent will charge a fee for the listing side, and the buyer's agent will have a buyer agency agreement with the buyer and typically request compensation through the offer to purchase.
Okay. That makes it a lot easier. I know there was a little bit in Green Bay area where people were doing the MLS and then just not giving the buyer's agent anything, or like giving them such a small fraction, it's not even worth it. And so I think there's a little bit of that going around, but that's definitely died down because you kind of destroy your reputation doing that.
Yeah.
So I know have commission rates at all changed, or are they still kind of around 3%?
So we're seeing some fluctuation, but I wouldn't say change. I guess we saw some fluctuation before, but I wouldn't say they've gone down. They haven't gone up. I think it's been similar, but fluctuation. I think it was for years. You might some areas might demand a higher commission rate than others. Some of that's based on average sale price. If you're in an area where you're selling $1 million properties, you can work at a lower percentage than where in Wisconsin Rapids, where we're at 200,000. So it's just a little different by that.
Okay. Is commercial affected majorly at all, or no?
Not as much. And interestingly, in the commercial side, and I don't sell a lot of commercial real estate, but from what I understand, especially from the bigger brokers, they rarely shared commissions. Oftentimes, they already did this like this, where the listing broker had their commission, buyer would work with that agent specifically, and they would, oftentimes in commercial, their agent would be compensated by their client, by the buyer. Big company coming in, they want that person representing them.
Yeah, I know that's kind of how it works in New York. So I was talking to a lot of the commercial real estate brokers in New York, and they don't even use the MLS or anything like that. They just go straight through their website. And so the lawsuit didn't really affect them at all.
Right.
So being that you're on the Central Wisconsin Board of Realtors for the MLS, is there anything there that we should know about or keep an eye out for?
I think we're watching a lot of things. When you look at the Department of Justice has been looking into real estate, and they're talking about, one thing is a clear cooperation policy. Should that stay in place? And clear cooperation is if we list a property, we have to have it in our MLS within 1 day of marketing the property. Now, every MLS can be a little different. Some are stricter than others, but that's kind of that national policy. That has not gone away. It's kind of stayed just the way it is. And I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do with that. I like the MLS. I'm a big, I believe in the MLS. I think it's the best way to allow everyone to see all the listings, and I think it's in the seller's best interest. But there are people that feel that, sellers should be able to control what they want. So it's going to be interesting.
I agree. The one thing that I'm going to say, though, is with a clear cooperation policy, I hear a lot of realtors complain about that. They want to kind of market ahead of time. And so some of them are getting around it because it's weekdays that needs to be in the MLS. So what they can do is they can go on Friday, list Friday, market over the weekend, and then it has to be on Monday. So they kind of have a little bit of leeway there. However, I don't know if that goes away, how many people are just going to shift out of the MLS entirely as well.
Yeah, I don't think they'll shift out of it. I think they'll use it a little bit more at their leisure if it goes away, where they'll maybe use 4 or 5 days of their own. Now, our MLS has a stricter policy for clear cooperation. We can't market a property until it's an MLS. So that whole, market it Friday through the weekend is not allowed in our MLS. We had so many complaints that we decided to go that route. Some people love it, some people don't, but
yeah, MLSs generally tend to be super strict. And I know there's a lot of real estate agents who passionately hate that. Yeah. What is your opinion on that? Do you think the MLS should be strict, or do you think you should be a little bit more loosey-goosey?
Yeah, I like the strict rules. I think it keeps everybody on a level playing field. I just don't see, and maybe there's instances, so I'm just saying generally, it's in a seller's best interest to have your property on the MLS where all agents can see it and all buyers can see it. So that's my opinion.
I think the MLS is really good because it's kind of an aggregate, right? Mm-hmm. So it's an aggregate of everything in the area, what you can find on the market. And so it's sort of like going to Target and seeing all the products, or going to Amazon and seeing all the products. Right. It's exactly that for real estate. But the problem is, it seems to be that because the MLS is so strict, real estate agents almost want to shy away from it. I wonder if the MLS wouldn't benefit from almost going, this is what you're allowed to list, and giving them less ability within it, but like making it public almost. So making the MLS that anyone can access it anywhere, but then you can only list on it if you're a realtor, and you can only list certain things.
Yeah. Part of it is, and I hadn't thought through that idea there. Part of it, when we look at realtors nowadays, and if they don't want to use the MLS, it's because it's a seller's market and there are plentiful buyers. If the market shifts and it's a buyer's market, everyone's going to want to use it and use it right away. And the market really dictates our feelings on it. I would say, though, I still believe it's in the best interest to be on there right away as a seller and as an agent.
Okay. What do you think if you were to make an argument against the MLS, what would you say?
I'm a big believer in the MLS. It's tough for me. It's tough to say anything against it because I just feel like it's best for buyers and sellers. I know that there are situations, but when there's the talk of these situations where people want to keep properties off the MLS, there are options. There are office exclusives that can happen. There's documentation that the seller can sign. But there's just too many reports out there showing how much more a home can sell for when it's marketed to everyone. And we don't worry about selling our own listings. We worry about selling houses. And I want to put it in front of as many people as possible.
Real estate agents, are you struggling to capture leads? If you're struggling to capture leads through your website, we can help. We've created a step-by-step guide on how to use our lead capture engine. It's the system we've used on all of our real estate websites to capture sellers, including Cade Covey, who earned an extra $80,000 in just 3 months by working with us. Are you ready to set up your lead capture engine? Visit dmrmedia.org/#gift to learn more about how we can get warm leads like a pro.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's almost the kind of the reason why investors really like off-market properties, because they're cheaper generally.
Yeah.
So do you, where am I gonna, the off-market properties are a big deal for investors. Do you think there's a way to make it so that they have those same benefits on the MLS, where it's potentially a little bit cheaper and you kind of keep everything together? Or do you think the MLS, because it's that aggregate, inherently makes it more expensive because there's more competition?
I think it's that. I think it's the latter. It's the more competition, and when you have more eyes on it, we're looking. Our memory is recent, right? And when I think of my memory, it's the recent time. So the last 3 or 4 years, I absolutely want my property in front of as many people as possible, because there's a good chance I'm going to get multiple offers and I'm going to get the most possible, or at least the best situation possible. It can be different though if the market swings, but again, I still think having it out there is best for sellers and buyers. I mean, having an off-market database, I don't know I just don't know who that's good for.
Yeah, it's really hard to regulate because you can, like, especially off-market databases, you can just flat out lie. Like, I've seen a couple listings where it's listed 3 times, and every single different time it has a different square footage, a different amount of beds, different amount of baths, and so you're never entirely sure what you're getting. Whereas with the MLS, it's like rigorously checked, and if you're an idiot on the MLS and you list something wrong, you're gonna get a little bit of pushback. So you have to be really, really careful.
We get fines too. I mean, it's very regular. We have an automated system that checks for bad data, not putting things in time and all that, and fines can happen. We also have the ability right in our MLS to report others. So if the data is bad, just report them and send it in and try and get it fixed. The whole point of the MLS is not only for us as realtors, but it's also used by appraisers. And if we can have the best information possible, I think it's best for us.
Yeah, I agree. I think the one thing that I'm going to say is, like, from a website perspective, the MLS is super strict. So, for example, if I'm trying to build a website for someone and I want to add the MLS feed to it, one of the big things is I have to have in the top the brokerage, and it has to be the specific brokerage. So I had an agent where I put the Fox Cities logo, which is technically the brokerage, like his broker is in the Fox Cities, instead of the Stevens Point location. And someone reported him for it. So, like, the MLS is super, super strict with that. Do you have any leeway on kind of that? Like, is there anything on websites that real estate agents should be wary about?
In some of that is MLS rules. Some of it's license law rules as well, and that's where it gets a little hairy. What's what? I think the license law dictates some of that advertising and how it has to be, and then MLS is trying to enforce it. For instance, a guy I know just got a fine because there was a sign in one of his listing pictures. I couldn't see it. I couldn't see what the sign said, but you could see there was a real estate sign in the picture, and they got fined. He wasn't super impressed, but what do you do? I mean, there are rules in place. So because of the way the MLS is set up, my listings go on everyone else's websites. And if I have my signs in the picture, I'm advertising my company on someone else's website. That just doesn't work best. So having strict rules can be tough, but it also tries to maintain a level playing field.
Yes, 100%. The problem with the strict rules that at least I run into is there's a lot of them where, like, how am I gonna advertise in a specific way? So you're really, really confined to what you can do. And so you can't be super creative, which makes advertising a little bit difficult, but again, is really, really good from a regulation standpoint.
Yep.
So I also wanted to kind of read to you this from the NAR, National Association of Realtors, and I wanted to get your opinions on it. Mm-hmm. So NAR exists to serve our members and American customers. And while the settlement comes at a significant cost, we believe that the benefits it will provide to our industry are worth the cost. This is coming from the NAR president. NAR is focused firmly on the future and on leading the industry forward. We are committed to innovation, defining the next steps, that will allow us to continue providing unmatched value to members and American consumers. This will be a time of adjustment, but the fundamentals will remain. Buyers and sellers will continue to have many choices, and when deciding to buy or sell a home, and NAR members will continue to use their skill, care, and diligence to protect the interest of their clients. So, kind of, what do you get out of that?
NAR's tried to be a lot of things when they should probably be focusing on some very specific things that help us as realtors, and also advocacy not only for realtors but for private property owners. And I think if they could just focus on just those items, that's really what's important.
Go ahead.
I just say they just try too much, and to be all things is just impossible. And I think if they could just laser focus on those couple of items, that's what's important.
I think this is one of those cases of like they should structure it like the US does, right? Like you have NAR blanket and then you have kind of the MLSs underneath, and kind of treat like the MLS is almost like the states, kind of let them do their thing, and then just have a super thin layer on top. Because the reality is like California real estate is 1,000 times different than Wisconsin real estate. Yeah. Like if I go to California, I'm getting minted for a house. Like average is 750,000. So you have to be kind of like, you have to be cognizant of that.
Yeah, it is. It's a different world. And that's where I can see why clear cooperation is coming under fire. It's a rule that's a blanket over everyone. And again, like our MLS, I said, what is a little stricter than some. It's still a blanket rule. And I could see just let the MLSs decide. Or again, I like clear cooperation because I think it's best, but I don't know that we need a national rule to have that in place either.
Mm-hmm. It's almost like how a vast majority of the states have basically the same laws. Like there's a couple that are different, like turn right on red, right? That's a really good example of it. Like basically every state has it, but then there's like two that don't. And so it's for those states, it's a case by case basis, and it makes perfect sense.
Right. Yeah.
What's the legality of like, if I screw something up really, really bad in my MLS, what's going to happen?
Honestly, it's probably a fine. We got a pretty good breakdown of what offense it is and what the fine is. Some of the things that can get expensive are breaking with clear cooperation, but also if you have a property that you have in what we call like a delayed status or something like that can't be shown. And delayed is used typically if I'm meeting with someone today and they want to list their home, but they have an estate sale this weekend and it can't be shown until Monday, for instance. If I were to show it this weekend, I get a big fine. And I don't remember what it is, but it's not $50, it's $500 or something like that. But again, if I'm telling the world that it can't be shown till Monday, I should not be in there this weekend. So that's why that one's fairly strict.
What about, let's say I have an off-market property and I show it before I list it on the MLS. Am I still allowed to show it on the MLS or no?
As long as you did it properly, yes. So the clear cooperation only comes into play if you're marketing the property. So our MLS allows, and I should know this, but I think it's either 3 days or 4 days to put a property in the MLS. The only way you have to do it sooner is if you started marketing it. So if I list a property today and I said, oh, this is the perfect house for Andrew, and I call you and we walk through and you're like, yeah, I want to buy it. You buy it. Seller signs it. Everybody's good. It's no problem. But if I'm out there marketing it to the world, then I need to have it in the MLS.
Okay. On kind of the marketing point, I'm going to ask you a little bit on this. We're going to poke you here. What does Next Home, your office, your partners, correct?
Yep.
Because partners and priority, I always get the two mixed up.
Yep. We're close by.
So what do you guys do for marketing?
Yeah. So for the most part, we don't spend a lot of money on marketing. I'll put it that way. What we do is we have agents in place that are doing this as a career. And real estate's an interesting business where, well, and if we talk nationally, there's 1.5 million realtors and less than 5 million sales per year. So if you break that down, the average agent does three deals a year. At our office, we want professional agents that do a number of transactions. We have a couple newer people, but prior to those newer people, our agents were averaging around 25 deals a year, which are people that are in it full time working with buyers and sellers all day long, and in the game. So as far as marketing, obviously we do some social media marketing. We have people sponsoring posts and whatnot, but most of it's online marketing. We have people that do pay for upgrades on Zillow or Realtor.com or buying leads or that sort of thing. But for us, it's mostly work in our sphere and trying to be really active in the community. Another thing that we do is we do support a lot of things in the community, so we're kind of that go-to company.
Real estate agents, are you tired of chasing leads? If you're struggling to find quality sellers or feel like marketing takes up too much time, DMR Media can help. We specialize in getting real estate agents high quality leads, ready to buy leads through SEO and pay per lead approach. That means basically no upfront cost and zero risk. You pay when we deliver results. Imagine a steady flow of clients finding you on Google while you focus on closing deals. We've done it for agents like Cade Covey, who earned an extra $80,000 in just 3 months with our system. Take back your time and get results. Visit dmrmedia.org to learn more about how we can make your marketing work for you.
Yeah, I know I was talking to Nate kind of about this. It's like you guys are very much agent focused. You kind of leave it to the agents from my understanding. But then you also hired a marketing person, if I'm correct. How does that work?
Yeah, so she does a couple of things for us. She helps in the office. It does some office work. She does photography for us as well, which has been really helpful. We had been hiring from the outside for photography, and then she's been doing some social media marketing for us. She's working into those next steps of she's trying to increase our search engine optimization, trying to get our reviews as Google reviews, so it just kind of helps boost that. It's definitely not my strong suit, so half of what she says I don't understand. But we're just trying to build up that side of the game as well.
Yeah, marketing is definitely a very, very broad thing. And hiring to do like everything, it's really, really hard to do everything. I'll put it that way. So social media in and of itself is a beast because you have different segments as well. You have TikTok, you have Instagram, you have Facebook. So what are you focusing on?
So for me, that I'm old enough that I use Facebook, and that's about it. But I know she's when she's putting stuff out there, she always will respond to me and say, "Hey, I have it on Instagram, Facebook. I uploaded that review to Google." And trying to be a little bit more broad than just that. We were just on Facebook only, but she's trying to broaden that a little bit.
Facebook's probably the place to be right now. So the problem is Instagram and TikTok is everyone's so young. Like you don't want to sell a house to a 16-year-old. That's not really applicable. So you have to be kind of cognizant of that. I would actually look into this. LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Because of the new video feed, they're putting a lot of views to people for like no reason at all. So I would even look into that for the office if you want to do more commercial.
Yeah.
Do you have a lot of commercial properties?
We do not. And we don't have a commercial specialist only because there's just not enough commercial sales in Wisconsin Rapids to handle it.
Yeah, I know that I want to say there's one or two commercial guys in Stevens Point. That's it.
Yeah.
Like, and they'd go up to Wausau too.
Yeah,
so it's not
absolutely.
like it's just Stevens Point. Do you prefer residential or do you prefer commercial?
Well, I prefer residential only because I do it all day, every day. I don't mind commercial. I've sold enough businesses and buildings to understand it, but I think for the everyday person coming into the business, residential is just kind of it's what you're doing every day. So it's just easier to understand.
So is residential actually easier or is it kind of mixed?
Residential sales typically close quicker than commercial. It's interesting. So in residential, you deal with a lot more emotions, and in commercial, you deal with more business decisions. So I don't know what's easier, but it's just different.
It's kind of like the logical versus emotional plays.
Yep.
So fundamentally in marketing, you have two options. You can play to the logical or you can play to the emotional. Play for the emotional, it's a fast buy. If you play for the logical, it's a slow buy.
Right.
So one of the commercial agents that I was talking to, he didn't sell a building for a year and he was fine. Like, that's just kind of how it goes in commercial.
Yeah.
You got to be prepared.
Yeah, you got to be prepared, and your average sale price might be 700,000, which sure helps when you're getting paychecks. And then on the residential side, Wisconsin Rapids, now the average sale price is over 200,000, but we went a lot of years where it was under 100,000. So we had to close a lot of deals to make a living here. Now we still do. Obviously, cost of living goes up. It's much different than a big city where I can close 10 deals a year and be, doing well. If you're not closing 20 to 25 deals a year, you're not making a living in real estate with our average sale price.
Yeah. I think that's what's so funny about New York as well. There was one guy, he closed 3 buildings in a month and made like 30 million. It's like, what am I doing wrong?
Right. I hope to gross that total in my whole life, and I don't think that's happening.
Yeah, I think it's bananas if you just look at different prices in different places. Like I said, I mentioned California before. The average home price in San Diego is 700,000.
Yeah.
Wisconsin Rapids, I think, is 230 or something along those lines.
If it's even that high, but yeah, it's not over that.
Yeah, it's insane. Insane. If you were to work in any market right now, other than Wisconsin Rapids, where would you work?
Oh, well, obviously a place like San Diego is beautiful. That's great. But what I love about Rapids is the size of the town where I know a lot of people, but I don't know everybody. And I think there's something to be said about that. I'd hate, to be in a big city. I'm afraid you're just a number and you can't grow the connections like you can in a smaller town. I can join the Elks Club or the Rotary or whatever it is and create a network that expands across a big part of the town. Where if you're in a big city, it's just hard to have that kind of, to grab that far. So for me, I like being in Rapids because to me, it's the right size town. Now, with that being said, I'd rather be in Nashville. If I had to pick a place, I'd rather be in Nashville living there.
Good choice. I wonder if, like, from that perspective of finding a smaller town, I wonder if you could almost find like a lake town.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because like you can get to know everyone there. And I guarantee you, if you find the right lake town, just go out, like, I don't know. You'll probably find everyone at like a bar or something.
Yeah. Go to the supper club, go to the bar and hang out and meet people. And absolutely.
Yeah. Sphere of influence, mate. All right. I don't have a whole lot for you. That was a pretty short one. So where do you want to send people anywhere? Any plugs you want to throw?
Oh, well, of course, our company here, nexthomepartners.com. Yeah, if you want to check it out.